This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the U.S. and beyond. Throughout these summer months, we've had the privilege of conversing with some remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. We have another great episode for you today. We have a Cali native whose name is Tanea, and you can follow her hiking and backpacking adventures on Instagram at essentially Tanea E. In this episode, Tanea shares with us some of her favorite hiking destinations near the Sierra National Forest, including Yosemite National Park. She also shares with us about her time living in Idaho and exploring some of the amazing trails and destinations the Gem State has to offer. Interested in experiencing Firefall in Yosemite? Tanea shares with us some tips and advice to help plan your visit. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Tanea. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm really excited to have this guest with us on the podcast today. Her name is Tanea, and she's going to be sharing about all her amazing adventures, not just in California, but in a state that I believe is an underrated gem, and that's Idaho. Tanea, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We always like to start off by having the guests share a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
All right. Well, my name is Tanea, and I'm California born and raised girl. Started hiking pretty much my entire life. Grew up in the Sonora area, which is a small foothill community kind of close to Yosemite. So I spent a lot of time in my childhood camping in the backwoods and hiking. My real passion came for hiking, though, when I lived in Idaho and my girlfriends kidnapped me for a week in Utah, and we went to Zion and Bryce, and that's where my passion for hiking really began. It was an amazing trip.
Oh, man. I've heard a lot of guests, and even myself, I think it really doesn't hit until you visit a place like Utah with some of their just spectacular scenery and landscape where it's like, oh my goodness.
Incredible.
Exactly. And you know, we're recording this during the heat wave that's hitting the West Coast. And I know, in some parts it's still accessible as long as you go in the morning. But I'm wondering, for you and your local trail systems and national forests and parks, how would you describe the hiking scene in and around your local trails?
It's a huge hiking scene up here. So I live in a small town called Coors Gold. It's about 3,000 people, and it's 40 minutes to the south entrance of Yosemite. So literally I can be at the gate to Yosemite in 45 minutes. And yeah, no, there's so much hiking even around our area. Bass Lake has tons of hiking, and it's a huge hiking scene up here. I mean, there's endless trails. It's fantastic.
And I got to definitely want to ask you about Yosemite, but do you have any favorite trails or hikes in and around your local neck of the woods outside of the park system?
I do. So Lewis Creek is a beautiful hike. There's waterfalls at each end of it. There's Corlew Falls that you can go on one end and Red Rocks Falls on the other end. It's about a 6-mile total out and back, but it's just absolutely stunning. And then we have a couple trails off of Bass Lake. One that's Willow Creek, that's about a 4-mile, and it's right along the creek, and there's waterfalls and little pools that you can swim in. It's a great way to beat the heat. I'm over there as much as possible, especially this time of year. It's pretty warm here. It's 105 today, so spots like that are great to have.
No, for sure. And I got to ask, because Yosemite's so close to you, What are some of your favorite seasons to explore Yosemite? Because I know for a lot of people, especially those that are visiting California, the summer months, it's when it's most popular. But do you have a favorite season that you like to visit the park?
Any season that's off season. Honestly, my favorite month is October because it's still warm enough. I like to float the river in Yosemite. The water's lower and not as dangerous, and the crowds are less, and trails are few and far between as far as people go. And it's the best time, October, for sure. If you go in the spring, there's still snow and it's a little chilly in the mornings. October is usually the best time for me, anyways.
And I got to ask, because I love floating, especially like you said, during these summer months. It's a great way to cool off. Now, in the park, are you able to float like in an inner tube, or do you need more of like an inflatable raft in order to make it downriver?
You can do inner tubes. Yeah, we've definitely done inner tubes. I take my paddleboard. I'm a huge paddleboarder. I take my paddleboard up there a lot. That's one of my favorite ways to float. And you can do kayaks. Pretty much I've seen everybody with any kind of floating mechanism on that river.
Oh, good to know. I didn't even know that was possible, but yeah, I might have to pack a floaty on my next Yosemite visit.
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned that, your love for hiking really exploded while you were living in Idaho. And for me, Idaho is still about like a 3.5 hour drive from where I live in central Washington. I still think it's one of the most underrated places in the West. The scenery from the chimney side on the north end of the state to down below with the just beautiful waterfalls, rivers. It's a beautiful state. Can you share a little bit about some of your favorite trails in and around Idaho?
Absolutely. So I lived in southern Idaho in Twin Falls, which is where Shoshone Falls and the Snake River Canyon is. And it's probably one of the most beautiful, spectacular places you will ever see in your life. Like, you were very accurate when you said that Idaho is underrated. They don't call it the gem state for nothing because it is absolutely beautiful. And I did a lot of hiking in the Snake River Canyon, but my absolute favorite place to go was a spot called Box Canyon. And you hike down into this canyon. It's in the middle of Wendell, Idaho, middle of nowhere, and you would never know it was there. You hike down these chains into this canyon. It's a 4-mile hike, and it's like you've been transported into the jungle. It's green, it's lush, the water is teal, it's freezing, but it looks tropical, and it's just one of the most breathtaking places that I've ever been in my life. And I probably hiked that about 5 or 6 times in the 4 years that we lived there because I just loved it so much.
Oh, wow. That's in southern Idaho?
Southern Idaho. Yeah, Wendell, Idaho. It's about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Twin Falls. It's so worth it to go visit. You've never seen any place like that before.
I'm definitely adding that to the list. And Shoshone Falls is just absolutely spectacular. And I feel like it's pretty accessible just to see the waterfalls. For those that are a little bit more adventurous, you can definitely take some side trails to get you to some more unique views. How would you describe Shoshone Falls to folks that haven't had a chance to visit?
It's like the little Niagara is what they call it. And depending on what time of year, spring is usually the best time. But when you're standing next to that waterfall, you can just feel the vibration in your body when it's roaring. It is unlike anything. It's just beautiful. And there's a lot of different little ways that you can get down closer to the waterfall. But one of the best ways is to paddle, because you can paddle all the way up to the waterfall from Pillar Falls if you get to the bottom of it. It's kind of scary and overwhelming, but it's really cool.
Oh, man. And, I feel like, especially some of the mountain waterfalls, the volume of water coming over the falls changes, especially the later months at the end of the summer. For Shoshone Falls, is it roaring year round, or does it have a season where it's not necessarily a trickle, but the flow is definitely a lot less?
Yeah, fall is a lot less. Spring is I would say the best time to go. I would say anywhere from May to June, especially if they've had a really good snow year. The last year that we were there was the worst winter that they'd had in 25 years. And I have never seen the falls. It was covered completely across the entire falls. Usually there's a couple like main down areas, but the whole entire falls was covered and it was just unreal. Definitely go in late spring if you can.
And I feel like Idaho has some really great water features. Some of their mountain lakes are just spectacular, and they have waterfalls throughout the state that are just amazing. Are there any other hikes that you enjoyed when you were living in Idaho that had a water feature, whether it was a waterfall, lake, or river?
So the Sawtooth Mountains up above Ketchum in Sun Valley, Idaho area, there is, I would say, hundreds of lakes that you can hike to. But my favorite one was Titus Lake. It's about a 5.5 mile hike in. And And it's just this big, gorgeous teal lake in the middle of this meadow with wildflowers everywhere. And it's just spectacular. Idaho is just unlike any place I've ever been. And I cannot wait to actually go back and do northern Idaho, because I explored a lot of southern but didn't get up to the northern part. But yeah, if you get the chance to go up to the Ketchum Sun Valley area, endless hikes, endless snowshoeing in the winter. Is an adventure playground up there.
Yeah, I only got to do day hikes in the Sawtooth Mountains, and I mean, it's just spectacular. I'd love to go back there and do some backpacking trips. Now, the water theme continues there in California, and you've been able to showcase some amazing hikes that have water features. Are there any in particular that stand out for you, whether it's waterfalls, lake, and hot springs even, or the ocean?
Recently, last September, my girlfriends and I backpacked the Point Reyes National Seashore, the ocean. There's a 10-mile hike through there where you can camp along the seashore, and there's a Laguna Trail coastal loop that you can go on. It's about 5 miles in, and it is just beautiful. And because it's such a hike to get in, the beach there's nobody. You get the whole beach to yourself. So it was me and my 5 girlfriends with our campfire on the beach watching the sunset. And yeah, I really loved that hike. I hadn't done a lot of beach hikes, more mountains. So that was an incredible experience to do with all my 5 girlfriends. So yeah, it was great.
When it comes to California, I mean, the whole West Coast has amazing wildflowers, but what I think set California apart are the amazing super blooms that you guys have in the spring months. How was your spring hiking season, and were you able to catch any of the super blooms or wildflowers?
It was actually a pretty decent wildflower season this year, and I was able to go out actually pretty local. We have a couple lakes around this area, Hensley and Millerton and Pine Flat, where they kind of pop off early spring, and I was able to do some hikes around there and get some really good pictures of the poppies and the gold fields. But my favorite spot to go to is the backside of Sequoia National Forest up above the Kernville area. It's kind of like a secret super bloom spot that not a lot of people know about. And you can hike up to the top of a hill and you can see just hills and hills of wildflowers. And then you can see the sequoia and the mountains in the background with the snow-capped mountains. And it's really picturesque and it makes for really great photos.
Oh my goodness. And I know this is a tough question because it definitely varies from year to year. And in different parts of California, it happens in different times. But what would you say it would be like the ideal month to catch the wildflowers and super blooms in and around your neck of the woods?
Yeah, like you said, it just kind of depends on the weather and the rainy season. But I would say late March to mid-April is probably prime. I was just in Yosemite and the wildflowers are blooming everywhere right now. It's spectacular. So it just kind of depends. But I would say late March to mid-April was the best time.
Do you have any other memorable experiences visiting some of the other national parks in California?
Outside of Yosemite, yeah, I've been to Sequoia. I love Sequoia. There's some really off the beaten path trails that you can take in Sequoia. Mineral Springs is a really great place to go to. It's not a national park, but it's outside of Sequoia. It's really beautiful through there. Miles and miles of trails. Love Sequoia National Park, but Yosemite has my heart.
I'm right there with you. Rainier's 45 minutes away from me, and any free day that I get, it's such a quick trip to make it inside the park. I know with California being so large, and you got your southern desert national parks, your inland parks, and then some up north, I feel like I would need a month in order to spend time in each of the national parks in California. And I still might not scratch the surface.
Absolutely. I've lived here pretty much my whole life other than the 4 years in Idaho, and I still have yet to explore all the parks. So all of them are on the list.
Now, Tanea, our mutual friend Becca put me onto this trail. She posted about it a few weeks ago. It was, and I'm going to butcher the name, but the Maine Tulum Ditch Trail, which just looks stunning. But then I saw in your feed that there's another ditch trail called the Browns Ditch Flume Trail that looked very similar. Can you share a little bit about the Browns Ditch Flume Trail and how was it hiking above the irrigation ditch canal?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just start off by saying that a couple years ago, PG&E has purchased this property and it's now private property and there's signs posted everywhere that you're not supposed to hike there anymore. People still do, but I just wanted to preface with that. But yeah, so those flumes were built in the 1900s. It's a huge flume system that's all through the foothills in this area. The Tuolumne flumes that Becca hiked, they're all connected in some way to each other. It is crazy to hike on the flumes. We went in April when there was still a lot of water underneath, and most of this hike, it's about a 4.5 mile hike, and most of it you have to walk on the flumes, and they're high up and the water's raging underneath you and you're on a catwalk, so it's kind of sketchy. But it was fun, and the views are really beautiful. But yeah, I'm not the best with heights, so it was a little sketch, but very fun. It feels like you're on an adventure when you're doing that, for sure.
And I know it's hard to see in the pictures, but the actual like irrigation canal, it's deep. Like it's pretty tall. How tall would you say? Like over 8 feet?
I was going to say 8 to 10 feet. It's really high. I mean, like when you're looking at pictures, it doesn't do it justice for when you're standing on it. And the catwalk is maybe 1.5 to 2 feet when you're walking on, and it's all metal, so it just makes these clanking noises. It's just kind of eerie, but definitely fun.
I'll have to add those to the list because you guys actually made me research. We have a local trail that actually is below an irrigation canal. And it wasn't until I saw yours and Becca's post where I'm like, I wonder if there's a trail system that takes you up to the canal and you can hike alongside it. And sure enough, it's called the Titan River Canal Loop. I've been hiking by it multiple times. I thought they were just little side trails that people took. But yeah, there's actually a trail. It doesn't put you on top of it. It makes you hug the side of it. But it's definitely on the list once things cool down to be able to go up there and hike along the irrigation canal.
Yeah, I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a different perspective. And it's just crazy to think about that's how they used to float things, down the flumes to build. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think ours, they said, I mean, it's definitely you had repairs and renovations, but it's hard to believe they built ours in 1903, 1906, and they're still holding the test of time.
It's pretty amazing. They built stuff really well back then.
Now, I instantly knew I had to ask you about these experiences once I saw it on your feed. But you got to travel to a few of the Hawaiian islands, and you actually got some hiking in on your vacations and visits. What have been some of your favorite island trails?
Oh, well, I just was recently in Kauai this last September. One of my closest friends lives in Kauai, and she showed us how to do it like a local. So we were there for 8 days. We hiked almost every single day, but my two favorite hikes, I would have to say, in Kauai are the Sleeping Giant. It's a scramble. It's probably rated hard, but it's a scramble up all the way to the top. And they call it the Sleeping Giant because it looks like a giant's face. And you get to the top and you can see almost the entire island of Kauai. It is so spectacular. I wish we could have spent more time up there, but a storm was moving in. So we had to get down as quickly as we could. We could see it off in the distance. But yeah, it was so beautiful. You can see all the coastline all the way down to the Napoli coast. And it was just breathtaking. And then the other one is Secret Falls, and you have to actually paddle to get there. So it's a 2.5 mile paddle on the river to get to the trailhead, and the trail is about a 2 mile trail in through the jungle to the Secret Falls. And I did it by myself because my friend had to work that day. I was a little sketched out because I'd never done that trail and, paddling and all that by myself. But it was one of the best experiences I had the whole time I was on the island. It was just beautiful.
I'm going to have to add that one to the list too. And were you on a stand-up paddleboard?
I was.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What a way to start the trail.
Absolutely. Had my snacks packed and my drinks, and it was an entire adventure, like an entire 8-hour day adventure. It was perfect.
Oh, that sounds magical.
It was.
Now, we like to do a segment on the podcast where we do a deep dive into our guest's IG and ask them about a post or a location that captured our attention. And as soon as I saw this picture, I knew I had to ask about what it was like experiencing the Firefall this year in Yosemite. And on Instagram, you shared your honest experience trying to capture that moment. Can you share a little bit about Firefall and how it was this year?
Yeah, I can. So I had this vision in my mind of how my Firefall experience was going to go, and it definitely didn't go that way. So I went with a friend, and we went up around 1 o'clock, and usually the show starts about 4:30, and we got into the park, and it seemed dead. So we kind of just meandered around a little bit, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're like some of the only people here. And so we decided to start heading over around 3 o'clock to where the fire falls, and we noticed that they had the road blocked off, and we were getting to parking lots and signs saying parking lot full, parking lot full, parking lot full. And it was getting closer and closer to the time where the show was supposed to start. So we were getting a little anxiety ridden and panicked. And I didn't think we were going to find anywhere to park. And we didn't. So we had to circle back around. And my friend decided to just drop me off because I was about to miss the show. She circled back around again and actually was crouching behind other photographers trying to get my shot because I showed up too late and everybody already had their spots picked out and they were all set up ready to go. And I just had to make do with what I had on me. But I got some spectacular shots and it was an interesting experience. And now I know to be more prepared for next year.
The shots that you were able to share on Instagram are just truly spectacular. And it wasn't until this year where, I should have known better, but like it's not guaranteed that it's going to be a show every day. For some strange reason, I was like, every day during that 2-week period, you're guaranteed it. And it wasn't until somebody was like, yeah, it was fogged in and clouded in that day, so there was no firefall. And I was like, oh, it's weather dependent a lot of the times as well.
Yes, definitely weather dependent. And another issue that happened is clouds did start to move in and we were like, oh no, it's not going to happen. But then it actually did happen. So I feel very lucky that I actually got the shots and got to experience that. I'd never seen so many photographers in one place in my entire life.
Oh my goodness.
It was pretty cool.
And now that you've had a chance to be there, for folks that are interested in trying to capture its beauty next year in 2025, are you able to share any tips or advice to folks so they're able to experience it?
Absolutely. Get there as early as you can and set up your spot. You're probably going to be sitting for a while, but if you want to get a good spot and not feel rushed, that's definitely what I recommend. I highly recommend that. I've never, ever in all my years going to Yosemite experienced crowds like that. So you want to really keep that in mind. Be prepared ahead of time, for sure.
And Tanea, are they still allowing cars in the afternoon to come in, or do they restrict it and you have to shuttle in?
So they're doing reservations on weekends. So during the week is probably going to be your best time if you don't want to deal with the reservations. They don't shuttle anybody in, as far as I know. So definitely try to go during the week.
Okay, good to know. That was it for the regular questions, Tanea. These next 3 questions are questions we like to ask all our guests. The first one is, when it comes to hikers and backpackers, a lot of us have a regular summit routine or end of the hike routine. For a lot of us, it's packing our favorite snacks or drinks. For a few, it's that moment of zen on the summit or next to the waterfall. And then I think for a lot of us, it's that favorite meal afterwards. Is there a regular customer routine that you like to do when you reach your destination or when you make it back out?
Absolutely. So in 2019, my best friend and I did Half Dome, and we summited to the top of the Half Dome cables, and we both brought up our Half Dome beers, which is the local brewery here, Tioga Sequoia. And we're like, we're going to bring up Half Dome to Half Dome. And ever since we did that, that's what we do on every hike, is we bring a Half Dome with us, and that's our celebration for the end of the hike.
I like that. Did you do it as a day hike or as a backpacking trip?
So we did the backpacking trip. We stayed at the little Yosemite campground, made a 3-day adventure out of it. We left super early in the morning on a Friday, hiked up to the campground, stayed the night, and then hiked up at 4 o'clock in the morning up to the top of Half Dome. So you want to start early because storms do move in the afternoons up there. So the earlier, the better. We hiked down that day and camped out and hiked out the next day. It was one of the toughest hikes I've ever done in my life. It was crazy, but I felt like I could accomplish anything after I did that one. So it was pretty cool.
And do you remember the distance between the campground and Half Dome?
I think it was only like 4 miles from the campground to the cables. It's not bad, but the entire hike is 16 if you do it in a day. It's pretty far, and it's all uphill.
Props to the people that do it in a day. I think if that's the only way, definitely. But I would love to be able to do it like you and backpack and split it up into 3 days.
Yeah, it's definitely a more magical experience that way because we got to meet backpackers from all over the world because everybody kind of camps together, and we had our own little community within our little campsite, and we met people from Australia, Canada, all over, and it was a really cool experience. So I definitely recommend doing the backpacking way.
Now, this next question is is about your pack list. And I'm interested in two separate responses. When it comes to your day hiking pack list, is there a luxury item that you like to pack on a regular basis that falls outside of the essentials? As well as when you're backpacking, is there another luxury item that you like to pack that falls outside of your 10 essentials that isn't necessarily luxurious as far as price, but it just brings a little comfort to you? Maybe it's a book for some. Is there anything in particular that you like to pack on day hikes and backpacking trips?
So day hike is obviously my camera, my heavy camera equipment. I honestly have tried to go without it and I kick myself every time. So I'm always bringing my Canon and couple lenses, and definitely makes things a little heavier, but it's worth it in the long run. And then for backpacking, so it's my chair. So my chair is like heaven after a backpacking trip. It's the one thing that if I go backpacking, I can't leave home. It's like a little bit of comfort bringing, instead of sitting on the ground or on a stump, it's a little bit of comfort that you can bring with you. So it's my chair.
I love that. Yeah, I'm debating on a chair or a hammock as a luxury item for backpacking trips. The chairs that I have seen and got to sit in, there's nothing quite like taking off your hiking boots and sitting in a chair and just relaxing rather than trying to find a stump or a rock to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's the best feeling. It really is. And I've tried to bring hammock and chair, and I always end up using the chair way more than the hammock. So that's kind of why I bring the chair more often.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to find the right trees in order to set the hammock up correctly.
Exactly.
Now, we're a little over halfway through 2024. We're recording this at the beginning of July. When it comes to hikes and travel goals, do you have any for the remainder of 2024 or maybe beyond?
I'm trying to get my husband up to Mammoth Lakes area in the eastern Sierras. I've been out that way. I've stayed at June Lake and done some of the hot springs over there, but I'd really love to take my husband over out that area and do Devil's Post Pile and Rainbow Falls and take him to some of the trails that take you to the hot springs. It's just a really beautiful area. It's just so far away from everything. It takes quite a while to get over there, but in the fall, it's supposed to be spectacular. So we're planning a little trip in October over that way. Should be nice.
Right on. Well, that was it for the regular questions. This next section of the podcast is the this or that questions. I'm going to give you two hiking related topics and you just choose which one you gravitate towards. So the first one is, do you prefer a trail with a steep incline or a steep decline?
I'd have to say incline just because it's a little easier on the body. Going down, you still have energy when you're going on the incline, and the reward of the end is there to reach. So definitely an incline girl.
And this one's a tough one because you got to experience both of them, both in Idaho and in California. But waterfalls or summits?
I have to go with waterfalls. I'm a water girl, so gotta have a hike with water.
And now this one is a trail system question. Do you like a trail with switchbacks or would you rather just go straight up?
I love switchbacks. I think it just makes it easier on the grade on the way up. It's pretty iconic when you get to the top and you look down and you see all the switchbacks and what you have accomplished. Yeah, and I really just like the ease of a switchback versus straight up.
And then this one is our most controversial one. Trek poles or freehand?
Trek poles because I'm very clumsy, so I need all the sturdy balance that I can get when I'm hiking.
Oh, I'm right there with you. There was an Instagram reel that came up on my feed a couple days ago, and it was so accurate. It showed a guy hiking up a trail, full of energy, excited, and then it switched to him coming down the trail, and he's just almost like loosey-goosey, just like a noodle coming down. And it wasn't until this last weekend where I was coming down the trail after, I think I put close to 10 miles that day, and my legs were just noodles. And I was like, I'm the guy from that video. Like, I'm barely standing upright. So I'm right there with you. Trek poles on the way down are huge. Now, this one is about your footwear. Do you prefer to wear trail runners or traditional hiking boots?
I go with traditional just for the ankle support. I really love my Merrells. I just got a pair of Merrells last year, and they are my favorite. They're so comfortable. So definitely full hiking boots.
Now, this next one is another trail system question. Do you prefer a loop trail or an out and back trail?
I like a loop because you're not seeing the same thing twice. So yeah, definitely going with a loop.
And then this one is about your watering carrying system. Do you prefer to pack just regular water bottles, whether it's a Nalgene, Hydro Flask, or just regular plastic bottles? Or do you prefer a hydration pack like a Camelback or a hydration reservoir?
I mainly stick with a Camelback just because it holds a lot more water. I also have a clipped pouch that I keep with me on the front, but definitely go with the Camelback. It just seems to be easier, a little bit lighter weight for me to carry the Camelback than a water bottle.
And these next two are probably our hardest ones: sunset hikes or sunrise hikes.
Okay, so I'm going to go with sunrise because there's nobody around usually at sunrise. It's just you and nature. So sunrise is definitely my favorite. I try to get up like 5:30 every morning just to beat the sun, and it's quiet and peaceful. So I love sunrise.
And this next one is equally tough, but spring wildflowers or fall colors?
This is the toughest one for me, but I gotta go with the flowers. Just I love flowers and they're pretty and there's so many different varieties that you can capture. So flowers for sure.
And the last one is, do you prefer a long and gradual hike or some short and steep hikes?
Long and gradual so I can meander my way along and take my pictures and take my time.
Well, that was it for the this or that questions. For folks that want to follow your adventures on social media, where are some of the places they can see your posts?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at essentially Tanea E, and I'm also on Facebook at Tanea Evans Photography.
And we'll be sure to put both of those in the episode show notes so people can follow along. Tanea, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been a blast hearing about your adventures both in Idaho and California, and I can't wait to see what 2024 has to offer for you on the second half of the year. Appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Appreciate you, Ivan. Thank you so much.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Tanea. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for coming on the podcast. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at essentially Tanea E. Also, don't forget to check out the episode show notes for more. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the summer months, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. Hey everyone, hope you've all been enjoying the trails this summer. I gotta be honest, leading group hikes is a blast, but capturing all the amazing memories can be a challenge. That's where our new podcast sponsor, the Cameo Journal, comes in. This thing's built for travelers and hikers by fellow adventurers. It's a pocket-sized rugged journal designed for you to collect up to 100 entries from all your trail mates, your life guests, and anyone else you meet along the way. Basically, it can be a guest book for your travels and an awesome keepsake. Logan over at the Cameo Journal is a backpacker himself and put all his love for travel into the design. So if you're looking to level up your hiking adventures, head over to thecameojournal.com to grab one not just for yourself, but for your crew too.